Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is going to feature some products from Pretty Pink Posh. I am using the shoreline borders, the strip sentiments for summer, these totally adorable stitched corals and stitched seashells, and then I have the layered coral, I think it's layered coral, stencil, and the seashell stencil. And so I wanted to, I've had these products for quite some time. We'll get into that in a minute. But I wanted to use them in a way that would utilize the stencils and show how you can use stencils in a tone-on-tone way to add interest to your backgrounds without necessarily maybe using them with a ton of different colors, or, you know, some people kind of shy away from patterns because they feel like they might be a little bit too busy, but tone on tone offers us a way to use them that will add interest without overwhelming the card design. So I am starting with, this is just my regular Nina 80-pound solar white cardstock, and I started with salvage patina, and then for the blue, which is going to be the water eventually, it's going to be salty ocean, mermaid lagoon, and uncharted mariner. And I'm doing it at a diagonal. This will make sense when you see the cards kind of come together. I'm doing it at a diagonal so that way I have a lighter and a darker side to each design, so that way when I split them, they will work together. Now, I've actually been working on this card since last Friday. And so you'll see there's a part in it where I'm going to stop talking so that you can hear, because I had a little extra special helper that came into Mommy's craft room on Friday when it was time for Mommy to wrap it up. So I just went through and did one layer. And then for the sand, I'm going to use antique linen, brush corduroy, and gathered twigs. And I'm going to do the same thing. I know the other one we had 4 colors. This one we have 3 colors. But I'm going to do the same thing at that diagonal. So I'm going to cover the whole thing in my lightest color, which is that antique linen. And then I will do the brush corduroy and the gathered twigs at that diagonal. So I'll have to try to pay attention to see when the part is coming up. So hopefully I'm not like at an awkward stopping point, because that part is real life talking. I could have put it at the end, but then I was like, this video is already really long, so you're just going to get it in the middle of it. And if you're a person's like, I just want to watch your crafting and I don't care about, you know, your bid for connection with your followers, then that's fine. This channel is probably not for you anyway, but of course you can always just mute it or skip past it. So now we're down to the darkest color. Now, if you guys know, if you watch my videos, you know I typically do 2 color blends because I feel like that gives me the smoothest blend. The reason that I'm intentionally only doing it once is because we are going to use that stenciling. So now I have stuck this onto a sticky mat. I'm going to put the stencil in place, and then I'm going to put down the same exact colors that you just saw me put down. So I'm going to start with that antique linen, and that's going to go over the lighter areas. I like to build up color. I find that gives me a much smoother blend. So while I know that you won't necessarily see the antique linen over the darker colors, it does help to keep that paper kind of damp so that everything blends nicely together. So I do want to mention, this just happened to be because we're heading into Labor Day weekend. I actually got an email today that notified me that Pretty Pink Posh is having a 20% off Labor Day sale. Very serendipitous, since I was already working on this card. They're offering 20% off stamps, dies, and stencils. There is no discount code. The discount automatically applies, and it's from today, August 27th, through September 1st, so through Labor Day. So here, now we've got those done, I'm going to remove that, and you can see that tone on tone there. This one is a layered stencil, and I wanted to show you that those will work as well. So I'm just kind of getting everything lined up here And then I'm going to do those same colors, the Salvage Patina, the Salty Ocean, the Mermaid Lagoon, and the Uncharted Mariner, in that same diagonal order. This is the first layer of the stencil. So I am just doing the same thing that I was doing before. The nice thing about ink blending is as you layer them, I don't know if this is true of oxides or pigment inks, but it is true of dye inks. They build up, so that color gets deeper and more intense as you put more and more layers on top. So as I'm going through and laying these colors down, even though I'm putting the same color on top of the same color, it does get darker. So you'll see that here in just a second when we get done with the inking. But this is like, because I am a person who I like to add interest that doesn't distract from my focal point without it being super busy, because I want the focal point to stand strong, but I do like a strong supporting actor. So that's where the kind of like tone on tone stenciling comes in. So here you can see that, and you could totally leave it this way. I wanted to show you that you can do it with layering stencils. So I'm going to line up the second layer, and then I'm just going to do the same colors a third time because those dye inks will build up. This is the darkest one. Okay. So we're going to dip it in. Okay, we're not going to
do it by myself?
No, because we're not going to go all over. We're only going to be in this corner.
Okay. Well, I don't know how. Can I?
Nope, not down there. Only in this corner.
Come over here.
Sure, you can do a little over there.
But these ones need to be do 10.
Yeah, but we're going to get those with another color. Okay, here. Put it back in a cuppy.
We're going to do that one with this color?
Nope, this one.
Ooh. That was the funnest of all.
The funnest of all?
Uh-huh.
I'm so glad. Okay. Alright, so we're going to dip it in. Dip, 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 dip.
Can I do it?
Okay. Gotta go in circles. There you go. Good job.
Can I also do some down here?
Yeah, here, can Mommy have a turn? You want to help Mommy? Do you want to help me?
How do you take this
Hey, you're getting your fingers in there.
Cool. I think I want a color when you're done.
No, because we're going to go downstairs.
Why? I want a color when you're done. How about you set a 5-minute? How about you set a 4-minute timer?
Well, I do have to die cut. You want to help me with that?
A die cut?
Yeah, remember how we did that before where we ran it through the machine?
Yeah.
Okay, here, you want to do this one? We're going to get these guys down here.
What's this?
That's just, it marks what color it is. Okay, dip, 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 dip. Good job. All right, rub them in here. Good job.
You still there?
Yeah. Can Mommy have a turn?
Yeah.
Thanks. Oh, Mommy dropped it.
We need to get these ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you just that on my finger.
Okay.
Can I color your picture when you're done?
You cannot color my picture now.
Why?
Because my picture is for my video. And as you can see, it is so easy. In fact, my 3-year-old can do it. So here she is helping me, as you guys just saw. You will see those little teeny tiny hands as we continue to work through the card, because she was very committed. So now that I have both of these done, I'm going to pick one of the shorelines. Actually, Jelly Bean picked it. And I'm going to cut these at a diagonal. But in order to make sure they fit together perfectly, I'm actually going to stack them one on top of the other. And then I will tape them in place so that it cuts them in exactly the same spot so they'll fit together perfectly. Not only am I going to tape them where like the die is going to sit, I'm also going to tape the two pieces together. So that way there's no shifting, and they cut exactly where we want. So I'll just put a little bit on the top side and then I'll wrap it around to the back. This is kind of the same way I treat cover plates. If they go, the full A2 edge to edge, I put a little bit on the front and then I wrap it around the back where we're not going to see it. And then I ran it through. When I ran it through, you can see there is just like the teeniest, tiniest little sliver that is still hanging on. I just snipped it with my scissors and it was fine. And then now I'm going to take one side from each of the stenciled pieces and I'm going to put them together. And right away it's going to, even though it's two different stencils, right away it's going to give us that beach look. One's going to look like water and one's going to look like the beach. Even though we have, the stencils that are different, it doesn't matter. Our brain automatically is like, if you could see them from my little curly Q's head. And then here we were picking out the stitched seashells and the stitched coral. So she picked one and then I picked one. And that is how we ended up with what we ended up with. There were there was one seashell and one piece of coral that I didn't end up using in the arrangements. But for the most part, we did pretty good picking out what was going to work. And these were cut out of that same white cardstock. And I'm going to color those with alcohol markers. So once I have everything picked out, then I'm going to lay them out. This is on just a half sheet of 8.5 by 11, and I'm going to use my pixie tape to hold them in place. Typically when I have a bunch like this, I like to just use a large piece so that way I can hold down a lot of pieces at the same time. And that is the end of my guest design spot because I did this part after she was in bed. Speaking of, that's exactly what my husband's doing right now. I had fully intended to do this video earlier and it just didn't happen. And then he got stuck at work. So it was okay. All right, so now we're going to add a little bit of interest to where they meet. And so I'm just taking a white pigment ink pad. I'm using the one from Honeybee, but you can use any of the Altenew has a good one. So does Hero Arts. There's a bunch of white pigment inks out there. If you don't want to use white because you don't want to be able to see that kind of lighter shade, you could also use Versamark or any clear embossing ink. And so I just swiped it along the side and then I put on some white detail embossing powder. That was not enough. Like I wanted more of the white. I wanted it to be a little bit more solid. So once I heat set it and it was cooled off, I just did it again. If you find that you have gotten too much, you can always use a dry paintbrush to kind of go in there and knock it back a little bit. I like mine to look a little bit more random and not quite as purposeful or not quite the shape of the corner of my ink pad, which isn't necessarily attractive on a round spot. So the paintbrush does really help with that. So you can do it on one side, which I'll show you here in just a minute, or you can do it on both sides, whichever one works for you. The white's on the blue, so it looks like the surf coming in, or this other one, I did it on both sides. I liked the one where it was on both sides, so that is what I ended up doing for both of my cards. If you have some areas that you're like, man, I really wish I could have got some embossing in there and I just didn't, you can always use, I'm using this Copic opaque white ink. Another one that's really good is, it's Liquidex, I think, and they have a opaque white. So I just went in there and kind of dabbed in some dots to help fill in some of the maybe more sparse areas. And then in order to keep these together, I am going to glue them to just an A2 size piece of white cardstock. And then that way they're together when I go in and do the next round of die cutting. I know you're shocked. There's so much die cutting in this card, in these cards, plural. There's 2 of them. But I super love the way that these backgrounds look because at the end of the day, like when the cards are all put together, I don't think it's so in your face that you're like, oh, those are stenciled backgrounds. But at the same time, I think that they add quite a bit of interest, which I think is important. You know, you don't want your card to be like, meh, boring, or feel like it's constantly missing something. So because I have the stitched shells and the stitched coral, I wanted to go with some more stitching, you know, be along with that theme. So I used Pretty Pink Pashas. These are the I think it's notched squares. And so I'm putting two of them together. They do have that stitching detail, and this is going to create a frame for me. And then I'm also going to use a large stitched die to cut these out as well. This one is not Pretty Pink Posh, but I'll link it below. So it's just going to cut it just slightly smaller. So that's going to give us a nice white border around the edge and really help kind of meld these two pieces into being one. You know, because that stitching will continue even through the parts where it's together. So that's how it is looking right now. And then this is the framed piece. I was really happy with the way that this came out. Now, you guys know I think it's important to share even the boo-boos. Here, look at this. So my tape normally does not tear my paper, but I'm guessing what happened is my paper was probably still a little damp, and I ran this through twice. I ran it through twice because I was trying to cut through two things of cardstock, but here is how I fixed it. First, I tried to salvage any part of it that I could, and I glued that back down. Then I'm going to go back in with some more ink blending right over top of that, and then finally I'm going to take a marker to it. So by the end of the day, you couldn't really tell that my paper had ripped, and even though in the finished card, you can actually see the section where it ripped. It's in between the coral. But unless you're really, really paying attention, nobody's going to know. So now we're moving on to the coloring. I will tell you that I did speed this up quite a bit because I ended up having, well, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I ended up having 12 pieces that I ended up coloring. Plus we had all the ink blending and then the, you know, kind of surf technique. So there's quite a bit in this video. And since the stenciling portion is the part that I was really concentrating on, I wanted to leave in the coloring, of course, because it's important to me that, you know, if you see the card, you're able to come to the video for whatever it is that you're intending to learn. But sometimes I just got to speed it up a little bit. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, you can totally go to the little gear and it'll give you the playback speed, and you can slow it down so that you can see it a little bit slower. I would recommend muting the voice part for that, unless you want to hear me talk in slow motion. So for most of the coloring, I'm just following the adding shading where 2 points meet or where one object lays on top of the other. The only time that is a little bit different is once we get to the seashells, because I wanted to add different patterns to them, because I wanted them to be, you know, like shells, like a little bit more interesting. So I did kind of create my own patterns. But other than that, it's, you know, the rest of it is pretty, straightforward. So for the starfish, you know, I did the shading in between so that would be darker, and then the lightest part would be like where the tips come up. I did end up going back in with my mid-tone to help kind of blend them out. And then I also used this yellow to color some of this coral here, and they're all kind of like snugged in next to each other. So just looking at, you know, the one that sits in the back is going to have more shading than the one that's in the front. There'll be more lightness, and then the same thing with on the top. You know, you're going to have a little bit darker, you know, toward the edge, and then a little bit lighter as it moves back. And again, I did go back in with that mid-tone to help everything blend. Here is where we get into the seashells. So this one is a round shell, but I wanted it to look like one of the ones that is, it almost looks like it's like been cut with like a crinkle cutter, like it has all the ridges. So that's what you see me doing here. I started off with 3 ridges so I could get them pretty well spaced. And then I went in and added another one in between. And so what this dark color is doing is it's acting like my valley. So it's acting like the bottom part of the ridge. And then I'm going to work out from that C7 to a C5 to a C3 to a C1. And the area that is the C1 is going to look like the ridge that is lifted. And the reason why at the bottom I am creating a triangle, like I'm letting the darker gray kind of flare out a little, is that's going to help it look more ruffled because the actual die cut is cut smooth. Then it does have these lines around the edges, like the stitched edges. So I colored those as well because that would be part of, the pattern. And then I just went in with the C7 and made those areas a little bit darker where they would meet those lines. Super happy with the way that one came out. For this one, I'm going to do the same colors, those cool grays. I'm tracing that inside section because if it was curled up on itself, you would have a lot of shadows. And then from there, I'm putting in kind of more of a striped pattern that you sometimes see on seashells. And my lines are not perfect. They're very wonky and very wobbly. And that is done on purpose because in the, when you see shells on the beach, they don't have perfect lines. And once again, I just will go from the C7 back to the C1 and just, layering those colors over top of each other. And so I was also happy with the way that one came out. So I started working on these on Friday, but I've actually had them much longer. And because I was supposed to guest design. I was supposed to guest design for Pretty Pink Posh. And Paulina had reached out to me, and I've guest designed before for them in the past, and it's always been a pleasure to work with them. I've always really enjoyed their products. And so when she reached out to me to guest design again, I was, thrilled for another opportunity to work with them. And so she sent she sent me the things, and then my mom passed. And so I did not have an opportunity to use them. Let's go back to the card. So here I'm just kind of drawing, they're not even, I don't even know what kind, they're like rounded little blobs is basically what I'm doing. They don't have any rhyme or reason to them. But I am keeping them kind of more on the one side, for the large section. And this is to kind of mimic those spotted seashells that you would see. And this is the warm grays. I apologize for not showing. I don't know what I was doing, why I didn't show that. But anyway, it's a W1, 3, 5, and 7. And then in the bottom where like the little bit of the shell would be open, I went with these pinks. And you will see I'm going to utilize these pinks in a couple of different ways. This one is also going to be the warm grays. I'm going to be honest with you. This one, I just kind of made up the coloring. I've never seen a shell like this. I've never seen a shell like this with this coloring, with this shape, of course, but with this coloring, no. So I was just kind of doing my own thing. And I don't think anybody who got my card that says have a bright day is going to be like, well, she made up that seashell. And if they are, then, the card was wasted on them anyway. So she had sent me the things, and I was super excited to be able to work with them. You guys know I love summer, and here I am at the end of August, clinging by my fingertips. Unfortunately, right now it's like 58 degrees outside. And for those of you who have been kind of hanging around, I've been trying to be better about like working out and what I'm eating and everything else. And I am about 3,000 steps shy of my goal for today, which means your girl's going to have to get on a hoodie and get out there in this 58 degree weather. Thank you, Ohio, in August, so that I can get my steps in. But yeah, so thankfully, she was very understanding and, has just been wonderful through the whole thing. And then hopefully I will have another opportunity to guest design with them. Here for this one, first of all, I love the shape of this shell. And there is another one, there's another set that she has that is a shaker shell that is this shape, and it's much larger, and it cuts out the two pieces to turn it into a shaker. And I adore it. I definitely want to to be able to get in there and use that one at some point. But so for these ones, I just chose kind of like some lighter warm browns, and then I used those same R20 and R00, I think is what I went with. And so here, what I did was I went through and I kind of put all of my things together, and then I'm laying them out on my card to make sure that I'm going to be happy with the way that they are looking. So you can see that other one up there. I did do this beforehand, before I started coloring all of them. But I knew that there's always like some last minute finagling. Like for this one right here, I ended up cutting it apart, which is fine. There's no wrong way to use your products. And if you find that, cutting those die cuts up helps your balance a little bit more, then great, do that. So here I'm going to start gluing them. And basically what I do when I have kind of like a bouquet like this, if I don't use the press and seal hinge method, which a lot of times I don't because I'm lazy and it's downstairs, that would help me get my steps in, wouldn't it? But anyway, I'm just going to add some glue. I'm going to press it down onto it and then hopefully be able to pick them all up. And this pickup was pretty clean, minus this little green guy in the background. And so I just laid him down and kind of tucked him back in there, and then it was fine. The reason that I was doing it this way is because I wanted to pop them up on foam. I know it probably seems a little bit wild. You could absolutely turn these into shakers, by the way. You could turn them into individual shakers. I just had way more bouquet going on, and I figured it wasn't worth it to do a shaker piece because you would barely see it. So I decided instead just to put all the sequins on that I wanted, all of the sequins. So anyway, now I'm going to glue down my stenciled piece, which I still love, and then this as my focal point with the frame that complements that white frame on the outside. And then we have all of these like kind of bright, fun colors that really scream summer. And so here, by the way, this is the one that has the tear in it. So when I pick this up, you can see in between the two corals on the left-hand side, or maybe you can't see. Maybe I'm a magician and I did it so well you can't even see it, but that is where the tear is. I can see it in real life, but only because I know where to look. And then once I have this down with the foam tape, I go through and re-secure everything to make sure it's all, secured down with glue. And then this is the second one. Here I was kind of playing around with different placements, and I do think that it would work in different placements, but because I'm matchy with my cards, and these are sisters, not twins, already with the difference in the layout, I was like, I'm just going to roll with it because I like it in the center. This is the sentiments. These are the ones that are the sentiment strips. This one is summer, and so I chose Sending You Sunshine and Have a Bright Day because those don't necessarily have to be like summer things. You could send this anytime. And then I stamped them. This is, what is this? Nimbus cloud cardstock from Altenew. I think it's like a kind of a muted gray blue. It's really pretty. And it went really well with like the more muted colors of the seashells. And then once I stamp those in my pigment ink and heat set them with my white detail embossing powder, I then went in and trimmed them into labels. I love my Fiskars trimmer for this because it has that wire guide so I can see exactly where it is going to cut. And then it makes just like these perfect little labels. So for the labels, I adhered the one on the left kind of up into the middle, and then the bottom one kind of down into the right. Because I already popped these up, I did want to make sure that the sentiments were supported. So I put glue on them so that they would sit on top of the other die cuts. And then once I get them down, I'm going to slide in that little piece of foam so that everything is flush. So yeah, it's cold here, and in fact, I just told my husband today. I was like, I know that we're hoping to get like use out of the pool for Labor Day, but like maybe we should turn it down before then, so we're not paying like a $700 gas bill to heat the pool because nobody's going to be in it because it's freezing. I also had to bring my plants in. My plants have been on the deck, and I had to have him help me last night bring my plants into the garage because it was going to be too cold for my anthurium to survive. I know, crazy. So I did add glitters to all of them, to the corals, to the seashells, and then I went in and added some white gel pen highlights. I just think it adds so much, just that little white gel pen. So I do just want to mention before we go on, because it is Labor Day weekend, I do have a craft page. I try to keep that like a craft sales page. I try to keep that pretty updated, as the sales are going through. And for those of you who have asked for different ways that you can support me, shopping those links is a great way to do that because they are affiliate links. And it's not any extra cost to you. I used the crystal, I think it's the crystal clear mix for my gems. And I put all the gems on there, all of them, all the sequins, because I love the way they add such shine and they continue on that kind of diagonal, play to the background. I love them. And then once I got them on there, I did add some glossy accents into the center to help them stay. And then that's it. That's both cards. So I hope this inspires you to use your stencils a little bit differently and you learned a little something. Thank you guys so much for your time. I always appreciate it. And I will catch you on the next video. Bye.